Welcome to the Unity 3D Training Lab 4, the 2D side-scroller game. In this set of training videos, we will see what it takes to make a true classic of the game industry by recreating Mario Brothers in the Unity engine. As we've done in previous labs, we start with a design document that helps us to better understand the project that we're going to be making. And as the projects have grown from simple games in the beginning, like point and click and a space shooter game, to the tool development and the pipeline scripts, the information we need ahead of time to understand the project becomes more detailed and more necessary. So what we need is a design document that outlines what we are to do and help us stay focused on a set of tasks. If we write it down, schedule it out, and stay within our design, success in this project and others is much more likely. So let's take a look at our design documents. As you can see, we've got one laid out for Mario Brothers. And we've only got one document. We are still small enough as a project that the need for separate documents isn't really necessary. But if we were to scope this project a little bit bigger, then additional documentation would be advisable just to maintain this project better. So we're going to do just sort of a page by page and break down what information is available on each page and the kind of information that we're looking for when we're laying out a simple design document. The first page, of course, is just our introduction page. We've got our Mario Brothers. Generally, you want to have some sort of image that represents the game so that people understand what it is that they're about to get into. We do have a setup for who's involved in this project so that we can list out the position titles and the names of the people associated with that project. Once we get through that, we move into what we have a high concept. What is the overall idea of this game that you're actually creating? For ours, it is about King Bowser Koopa wanting to take over the land, capturing the princess, and Mario needing to rescue her. Once we get through the high concept, we get into parts of the document that ask for gameplay. And we start with an overview of what the gameplay is about. The gameplay, for Mario is about a bump and jump style game. It is about him moving throughout his environment, using pipes to go in and out of, collecting coins, and then jumping on top of Goombas and killing off the enemies. Next, we have one for player objectives. And the player objectives really is for what is this player's purpose? What is he, what is he doing inside of this game? For us, our primary objective is to get to the end of the level before the timer runs out. We're keeping these objectives and these thoughts very narrow just for the chunk of the game that we're actually making. If this were a bigger game, then these type of objectives would get larger. So just remember that what we are seeing is a very simple, small slice of what you might see for a much larger game, much more complex game. Now, the primary objective is, of course, to get to the end of the level. As a whole game, it is to save the princess. And for our additional objectives, we are learning to move the player. We are learning to jump the player. We're collecting coins. We're jumping and stomping on top of Goombas. The core gameplay mechanic that we're looking at, we've got player character abilities, and what are those? For our character, we're going to be jumping. We've got a super jump, and we've got a fireball power-up where we can shoot fireballs out. Now for the enemy, we've got some enemy abilities for the enemy to jump, to charge attack, and to have a search radius to find our Mario player. The next things after our objectives and our core mechanics, we can look for our camera. How is our camera actually going to be controlled? We are doing just a 2D side-scroller game with a little bit of dampening on the camera to make it nice and smooth. After our camera, we have one for controls. And the controls are just how do we control this character. These are these things we have to document so that we understand what we're actually trying to create, how it's going to play out. So with the controls, we're looking for, do I move this character? Am I using a joystick? Am I using the keyboard? And if so, which part of the controller is going to work? What key is actually going to do it? We can list those out in here. We have our move. We've got our move and run. We've got a jump, a super jump, a shooting fireball, and then even interacting with the menu and what those options are. And once we define those controls and set those up, then we can move into the characters, the exciting things that are inside this world that we're going to control or interact with. And the characters we can look for sort of defining and breaking it into what's a playable character. What are the playable characters in the game? And for us, of course, it's Mario. Mario is the character that we're going to be playing. And setting up Mario, we can go in for defining a basic little synopsis of who Mario is and what he's doing inside of the game. We can also go into the stats and the abilities of the player. What can he do? If he's going to jump, how high can he jump? If he's going to shoot, how often can he shoot? If he has health, how much health does he have? So we want to define those properties, want to define that background to the character and how he's involved in the world that we've created. Now, besides just our playable good guy characters, then we also have our evil enemy characters. So we have our Goomba that's going to be involved in this game, and we want to do the same kind of setup. We're just trying to keep it similar across the board, that we're defining the character, defining a little synopsis about this character, setting up its stats, its abilities, the health, what can it do, how far can it jump, what's the range for its charge. Once we define these, then we can move into our items. And these items can be items that we pick up inside of the game, or power-up type of items. We have a nice little list here for simply just, the coins that we can pick up, how much they're each worth, for our super mushroom, for our fire flower, defining basically, point values, what it can do, what it does when you pick it up, does it change the character in some way. And we also define those with our power-ups. For our small Mario, how he starts off in a small form, and then with our Super Mario, how he turns into the larger Mario by eating the super mushrooms, the Fire Mario, and even an Invincible Mario, and how he can run through without getting hurt at all. Now, we can continue that list with additional things. If our game has weapons, we'll have a list for our weapons, for any other additional items or key assets that might be inside of the game. For us, it's simple enough and small enough that we're going to just define those main characters, and then through an asset list we'll define all the other types of parts and pieces, the building blocks of the game. Now, some of those building blocks are going to be coming from our levels that we start to define, and we have a list of levels, and the one we're focusing in on with this project is going to be just the ground, the level 1, with the Goomba for an enemy, and the basic environment with the bricks and the backgrounds and the pipes. So as you set up that first level, the one thing that you do want to do is talk about what is in that level, how the character is going to interact with it, how you're going to set up the timing and the pacing of that part of the game. Now, as this is a small document, if you were to continue with a much larger document, your levels would actually be broken up into additional documents that detail the level and all the parts and the pieces and how they function and how they relate to the overall story of the game that you're creating. Now, lastly, we're going to take a look back at what we want to do, which is just to kind of re-review everything that's inside of this document, all the characters and the idea that's there, especially within the levels, that as you're defining these levels, you're also defining the things in the level that you need. And by defining them, we're basically creating just a list. We're making a list. And list making is really where it is all at. The good project management is about making lists and managing lists. And this is where we can get our start. So that list is going to be defined right in here with our assets. So in this list, we want to list off everything that we build inside of the game. Absolutely everything. This is where we find out what are all the art assets that we're actually going to build. We want to just define their name and even the naming convention that we're going to be using inside of the engine, a description of the item that we're going to be creating, and we can even manage somewhat within the asset list here as to whether or not it's complete or not complete, the file type. You could continue, additional information for the file size, even the file location. Where is it going to be used inside of the game? The other lists that we have are going to be for a code. We're going to be looking at components. What type of components are we going to be creating? What are they going to do? What's the basic description? The file types that we're going to be using. So, even here we can start defining the code parts of our project. We can then define the design elements that are involved. The design elements might be the design document that we're actually creating. We can do the level 1 block out. We can do path nodes, setting those things up. Those can be parts of the production that we can itemize out and then check through. And of course we've also got audio, so we're going to have to compile and get and find our audio for the game, and we can make that list for all of our audio assets. Now once we actually create this giant list of assets, then we can also go back and do what we did in our first two games, where we looked at creating time estimates, where we can go in and say how long is each one of these things going to take me, and then get a better idea of how long the project overall is going to take us to complete. Okay, and that is going to do it for our design document. And now that we know what we are going to make, it's time to make a pot of coffee, get comfortable, and most importantly, get ready to have some fun, because you're about to make a true classic from the game industry. So have some fun, and we look forward to seeing your finished work.